Imagine a world where even the dead are not safe, where monsters walk among us in human form, and their lust turns graveyards and family homes into the most horrifying crime scenes in history. Tonight, we uncover the chilling true story of two nations, two nightmares, and the crimes so disturbing they shook the world to its core. When lust takes over a human mind, it can make them do anything. And after hearing this case, you all will believe it too. Since childhood, we all have been afraid of one place. No matter how rich or poor, brave or cowardly, whatever kind of person someone is, there is one place no one wants to go. And that place is the graveyard. But in today's case, the crime didn't happen anywhere else. It happened right inside the graveyard. This case is from Pakistan, and it is so disturbing that while I was researching it, only one thought kept running in my mind. In this world, girls are not safe while alive, and not even after death. Anyway, without wasting any more time, let's start today's video. This incident dates back to the 1990s in a small village in Pakistan called Sargodha. This village didn't have many facilities. There weren't many job opportunities either. Because of this, people often left the village to work in other cities, just to earn enough to feed their families 2 meals a day. For the same reason, a young man named Riaz left Sargodha and went to a city near Karachi called Liariabad. He went there only to find work. After searching here and there for a few days, he finally got a job. His work was to pour water on the graves and plants in the cemetery. During this time, he became friends with a man named Wazira. Over time, their friendship grew stronger. One night, Riaz saw Wazira entering a grave. It was nighttime. Riaz was doing his work when he noticed Wazira going inside a grave, and after a short while, he came back out. Riaz couldn't understand what Wazira was doing. From that day on, Riaz started noticing this pattern. Every night, Wazira would go inside a grave, and after some time, he would come out again. Now, a lot of questions started spinning in Riaz's mind. Why does he go inside the graves after dark? What is really happening? When Riaz couldn't find the answers himself, he finally decided to ask Wazira directly. He said, "Brother, what's the deal? Why do you go inside the graves, and what do you do there?" And then Wazira confessed everything to Riaz. He often went inside the graves and did extremely disgusting acts. In reality, after sunset, whenever a body was brought to the graveyard, Wazira would keep a close eye on it. Once the family members buried the body and left, he would check whether it was a male body or a female body. Now, you all might be wondering, how did he check that? Because after all, the body was inside the grave. How could he know if it was male or female? The truth is, in Pakistan, there is a tradition that female graves are covered with a cloth while burial, so that no one can look inside. And this is what Wazira used to watch carefully. That way he could tell if it was a male or female body. Then, when the family members had left after the burial, when the graveyard became empty, Wazira would take his tents. He would go to the freshly buried grave and remove the soil from the top, open the grave, and create a small space inside. Actually, in graves, some bricks are placed so that the soil does not completely press down on the body. Wazira would remove just enough bricks to make space for himself to enter the grave, and then he would do things that no one could even imagine in their worst nightmares. He would commit horrible acts with the bodies of young women. To put it bluntly, he would abuse the dead bodies of girls. When Riaz learned all this, what would a normal friend do? Forget a friend. What would any normal human do? They would go to the police, or at least confront him. They might say, "Brother, you're insane. What are you doing? You need to see a doctor. This is madness." But Riaz, he did nothing like that. In fact, Riaz himself became a part of these filthy acts. He joined Wazira in his horrific deeds. From then on, Riaz and Wazira started working as a team, and they continued doing these same horrifying acts. Wazira was a drug addict, and he kept using heavy drugs. One day he overdosed, and that overdose led to his sudden death. Now, Riaz was completely alone. His partner was gone, his friend was gone, but his dark obsession, his filthy desires, they didn't go away. He started doing everything alone now. Riaz continued these horrific acts for many years, but then came a day when Riaz saw something that made his blood run cold. It was the year 2011. In October, a gentle cold wind was blowing. Darkness had already fallen. At that time, a family brought a body to the graveyard for burial. They buried it, and about an hour later, they all left. That was the body of a young girl, and this was exactly what Riaz had been waiting for. Once the family had left and the graveyard was empty, Riaz went to the grave. He began opening it slowly. He climbed inside and started committing his disgusting acts. But after a short while, Riaz suddenly felt something strange. The cloth covering the girl's body, the shroud, slipped off on its own, and then it completely disappeared. Right after that, Riaz's eyes fell on the girl's teeth. They were shining in a very strange way. When Riaz looked closely at her face, he saw that her eyes were open, and they too were glowing in a bizarre, unnatural way. The moment he saw this, Riaz was struck with terror. He thought, maybe this girl is still alive, or maybe she was dead but is now awakened. In his mind, he felt she might be a witch or a ghost. Whatever it was, an overwhelming fear gripped him. Somehow, he ran out of the graveyard. A little further ahead, he came across some people. Out of breath, he tried to explain to them, "There's a girl in that grave. She was dead, but now she's alive. Her eyes are open. She is ghost." The people first tried to calm him down. "Brother, relax, it's okay. Drink some water, calm yourself." Then they all said, "Let's go see for ourselves." When they entered the graveyard, they saw that the grave was wide open. The soil was scattered everywhere. The bricks that had been placed inside were displaced. They were shocked. How is this possible? How can the grave be in such a condition? While thinking this, they turned to look at Riaz. And somewhere in their minds, one thought became clear. Without any doubt, Riaz was the one who is responsible. He was the one who opened the grave. He was the one who made space inside. And when they saw the condition of the girl's body, they understood exactly what Riaz had been doing all along. As soon as this realization hit them, rage took over. The crowd beat him mercilessly. They beat him so brutally that he was left half dead, unable to even move or speak. Only then they called the police. The police arrived at the location without delay, arrested Riaz, and took him with them. A few days later, Riaz was interviewed, and the entire interview was broadcast on a Pakistani TV channel. During that interview, Riaz confessed to everything: what he did, how he did it, and why he did it. Then he revealed something horrifying. He said he didn't just do this to that one girl, not two, not three, but in total, he had done this to 48 girls. The reporter asked, "How many dead bodies have you done this with?" He replied, 48. Yes, with 48 women. Hearing this, the reporter was shocked, and the interview went viral throughout Pakistan. Everyone was outraged and furious. People demanded that Riaz must receive the harshest punishment possible. People wanted him to receive such a punishment that it would become an example for the generations to come, so that no one would ever dare to do something like this. In fact, no one would even dare to think about it. Riaz was taken to court. The entire nation of Pakistan waited anxiously to see what punishment he would receive. The court sentenced Riaz to death by hanging. But do you know what the shocking part is? The shocking part is, Riaz is still alive and still rotting in a Pakistani prison. And even today, every Pakistani is waiting for the day he will finally be hanged. The acts committed by Riaz and Wazira are known as necrophilia, a psychological disorder where a person feels sexual attraction towards dead bodies and satisfies their lust with them. And sadly, this was not the first case of necrophilia. This kind of act has been happening for decades, and in fact, cases like these are still reported even today. Even in the present day, people continue committing such disgusting acts with dead bodies. In March 2020, a similar case came from Okara in Punjab, Pakistan. A man was caught red-handed while performing these horrific acts. Then, in August 2021, in Thatta, Pakistan, a 14-year-old girl's dead body was taken out of her grave by a man, and he committed unspeakable acts with it. Well, you all might be thinking, why are all these cases happening only in Pakistan? But that's not true. Such horrifying incidents are not limited to Pakistan. They also happen in India. One of the most infamous Indian cases was the Thari case, which is considered one of the most brutal cases in Indian criminal history. When I heard about this, I was forced to think, do humans really live around us? Or are there monsters in human form whom we mistakenly consider human? In Nathari, there were also two such monsters living among people in human disguise, Maninder Singh Pandher and Surinder Kohli. Nathari is a village in Noida, India. They say every coin has two sides. Nathari also had two sides. On one side, you would see huge houses, malls, and a fully developed area. You would say to yourself, wow, what a beautiful place. But on the other side, there were slums where poor people lived, struggling to survive, doing hard labor every single day. Even after working so hard, they barely managed to earn enough for 2 meals a day. Looking at this, you would realize that this developed area was actually only developed for the rich. Life continued as usual. Even though there was poverty, people were living their lives happily. They worked hard every day, took care of their families, and lived with contentment. But in the year 2000, things began to happen that felt as if a curse had fallen on this village. In this very sector, there was a house, D5. Inside it, some dark secrets were hidden, and when the curtain was finally lifted, those secrets shook the entire nation. On May 7, 2006, a family lived in Nitari, headed by Nandlal. He had a 17-year-old daughter, Payal. On that day, Payal went to house number D5 to work as a house help, but she never returned home. Hours passed, and Payal still didn't come back. As the night went on, her father grew very anxious. Her father became extremely worried. Where could his daughter have gone? The entire family was in panic because since 2003, there had been multiple cases of children and young people being kidnapped in the Tari. But the police were completely helpless. No matter how many complaints were filed, no matter how many pleas were made, the police could neither stop the kidnappings nor catch the kidnappers. Because of this, her father was under immense tension. He decided to step out himself and search for his daughter. He began asking everyone he came across, "Have you seen my daughter? Have you seen this girl anywhere?" He asked rickshaw drivers, vegetable vendors, anyone he could find on the streets. And finally, whether by coincidence or by sheer luck, he approached a rickshaw puller and asked, "Have you ever seen this girl before?" The rickshaw puller said, "Yes, I saw her. In fact, I dropped her at a house this morning." Her father immediately asked, "Where did you drop her?" The rickshaw puller replied, "In that area, if you go this way and take a right turn, you'll see a house that looks like this. I dropped her right in front of it." While explaining this, the rickshaw puller was also slightly angry. He said to her father, "If she is your daughter, then let me tell you, she didn't even pay my fare. I dropped her at that house. She went inside, and she didn't come out for a long time. After waiting for a while, I left." The rickshaw puller said, "I even rang the bell at that house because I wanted my fare." A servant opened the door. His name was Surinder Kohli. He told the rickshaw puller, "The girl, Payal, she already left from here." But the rickshaw puller didn't believe him at all. He said, "No, that's not possible. I've been waiting outside. I saw her go in, but I never saw her come out. Don't lie to me." When the rickshaw puller refused to believe him, servant got angry. In his rage, he picked up a brick and struck the rickshaw puller. The rickshaw puller somehow managed to escape from there and ran for his life. He told all of this to girl's father. When her father learned all this, he became certain without any doubt that the people living in D5 bungalow were behind his daughter's disappearance. With this thought, he went straight to the bungalow and rang the doorbell. The owner of the house, Moninder Singh, came out. When girl's father told him everything, Moninder outright denied ever seeing his daughter. Feeling helpless, he went to the police station and filed an FIR. But there too, he heard the same response that every other family had been hearing since 2003. "She must have gone somewhere on her own. She'll come back in a few days." The police kept saying the same thing. "She will come back. Don't worry, she'll return on her own. Go home and wait." That's all girl's father heard. By now, he had understood one thing clearly. The police would not act unless they were put under pressure. So he immediately sought the help of a lawyer and filed a petition in session court. He presented his entire situation before the judge. The judge took the matter seriously and ordered the police to start an immediate investigation. Now the police were under pressure. Because of this pressure, they finally began a serious investigation. While investigating, the police discovered that almost all the missing girls and children, their last known location was always near House D5. Realizing this, the police quickly gathered their full force, reached House D5. When they began searching the property, they discovered a water tank with a drain underneath. There, the police noticed several plastic bags. When they opened the bags, inside were human body parts belonging to 11 different girls. And these plastic bags were all found right behind D5 house. The police immediately arrested owner and his servant Surinder. They were interrogated harshly, and during the intense questioning, Surinder finally confessed to something. Surinder confessed that he used to bring girls, children, and women to his master Moninder. He would kill them and then do horrifying things with their bodies. Well, you all must be thinking, how disgusting, how vile. To kidnap a girl, murder her, and then do such things with her dead body. But the story doesn't end here. Their nightmarish desires went even further. After committing these acts with the bodies, they would cut the bodies into pieces, boil them, and eat them themselves. Yes, you heard that right. Surinder admitted to boiling human body parts and eating them. The remaining body parts were packed neatly into plastic bags and dumped into the drain behind the house. On one hand, Surinder had confessed all his crimes, but on the other hand, his master Moninder always claimed that he knew nothing about it. Moninder also claimed that he hardly stayed at his house in Noida at D5 and was unaware of anything happening there. Eventually, the police transferred the case to the CBI. The CBI investigation downplayed the cases where Moninder's name was mentioned and instead focused mainly on Surinder's crimes. During the hearings of this case, the sentences kept changing multiple times. When Moninder and Surinder were presented in court, they were sentenced to death by hanging, but whenever the case went to a higher court, the death sentence would be overturned and their punishment would be reduced. This continued for years, right until 2023. On 17 October 2023, the Allahabad High Court gave a shocking verdict. Citing lack of evidence, the court acquitted both Surinder and Moninder of all charges and even granted them bail. When this decision became public, the victims' families were left in disbelief. Not just the families, the entire nation of India was stunned when they heard. When people heard the verdict, everyone thought the same thing. Even hanging these men would be too little for what they did. This should be given a punishment that sets an example for generations to come. But instead of an example, they were granted bail. Both of them are free today, roaming openly in our country. Well, you will be shocked to know that according to the Karnataka court, necrophilia, a psychosexual disorder, does not fall under the sexual offenses listed in the Indian Penal Code of 1860. There is no specific law in the IPC that directly punishes necrophilia. And that's the horrifying reality. When lust takes control of the human mind, it can make a person do absolutely anything. While studying criminal case histories, I've come across many unusual and disturbing cases. But a case like this, I had never imagined it, never even heard of anything like it. This was truly disturbing, and I just really hope that someday a new law will be passed, a law that ensures the harshest punishments for the people like this. Cases like these remind us of a terrifying truth. Evil doesn't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes it wears a human face, walks in our streets, and lives right next door. Even today, loopholes in our laws allow monsters like these to escape true justice. And the families of the victims, they're still waiting for the day real punishment is served. If this story shook you, share it to make others aware. And if you believe these crimes deserve the harshest punishment, hit the like button to show your support. For more chilling true crime cases and the dark truths hidden around us, subscribe to Let's Discover, because the world is full of stories which are too disturbing to be ignored.